1977, George Lucas formed a legacy.
The Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
Inspired by mythology, his saga has become a passion for many.
Feel the Force around you.
His legend has become our story.
It's true. All.
One of resistance.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
Rebellion.
Rebellion is built on hope.
And redemption.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
This is Star Wars Reactions.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Star Wars Reactions. We are here tonight, recording, having a great night, and we are going to have an awesome, fun-filled episode for you today. This is going to be great. We're going to be discussing Chapter 14 of The Mandalorian, The Tragedy. It's going to be a great discussion. David's got a jam-packed psychology corner for us tonight. I tell you, we just got so much. It's going to be great. Let's get the ball rolling. I am one half of your hosting team. I am Aaron Harris, and joining me, he is, I should always think these up before I start recording, but I never do. I just think them up on the fly. And as you can tell, I don't have one in my head right now, which is why I'm dragging this out.
Well, maybe I'll be what is it? Chirrut and Bays, right? I'll be.
Oh, there we go. There's one we never did.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, there we go. Here he is, the Chirrut to my Bays, the David Motters. David, brother, how's it going?
It's good. I'm pulling you out of the Karabast moment there, and but no, doing great. Ready to react, and looking forward to covering this. After we had a big recording last week with Dan Z from Coffee with Kenobi, we've got even more to cover. A great episode, and like I said, if people enjoyed last Psychology Corner where I covered PTSD, I'm going to cover, if you can believe it, something even heavier than that, and that's the loss of a child. But I'll do it in a way that ties into this episode with Mando and Grogu.
Very good, very good. I'm looking forward to hearing that. So we got so much fun to discuss with this episode. It was the perfect way to follow up the Jedi episode, which was incredible in and of itself. So let's get going. First, though, we got a couple pieces of news we want to discuss, and just go ahead and get out of the way so we can get into our discussions today. I found out today, of course, we're recording this on Tuesday, the 8th of December, Tuesday, December 8th. I found out today that coming up on December 18th, you will be able to purchase Knights of the Old Republic 2 on your mobile device. Knights of the Old Republic 1, of course, the original is KOTOR is available now. You can get that. I actually have it on my iPad. Fun game, classic. And its sequel, which is also a classic, is being released. There's a trailer out on YouTube you can watch. It's on Facebook. But this caught me completely off guard. I did not expect this. And with the announcement, with this being the first time I've heard about it, I'm shocked that I'm hearing about it and it's coming out in 10 days.
I've heard nothing of this. Nothing on StarWars.com. Nothing on Twitter. And, my whole Twitter thing is all Star Wars. No politics, no religion, just all Star Wars follows by me. I haven't heard anything, buddy.
Yeah, I was very surprised. It was one of my friends sent it to me in a group chat, in a Star Wars group chat that I'm in, and I'm like, wow, whoa, what's this? I thought it was like one of those fan edit things on YouTube or something, and then I hit play and I started watching it. I'm like, oh my Lord, they're actually releasing this. It's coming December 18th, so it's right around the corner, y'all. So if you're a fan of Knights of the Old Republic, check it out when it comes out. I don't have a price point on it yet. If it's anything like the original Knights of the Old Republic, I know when I got it when it first came out, it was like $9.99. I don't know what it's going for now.
Oh my!
Let's see. Knights of the Old Republic. There it is. It doesn't tell me because I've already purchased it. That's nice. Thank you, Apple. I appreciate that. Thank you for realizing I have purchased this game and not showing me the price. All right. So, if you have not purchased this game, you can let us know what the price is. But I know when I bought it originally, several years ago, it was $9.99. It's a huge game. So very detailed, a lot of fun. So, and of course, the two came out several years after the original. So this is going to be so much fun. I got something to look forward to again. So as that, so that's coming up on December 18th. Now, of course, we got Mandalorian going on. We had all the Mando Monday stuff that came out. There were some announcements, some clothes, some pops. Moff Gideon pop was announced, and Moff Gideon Funko shirt. Pretty cool stuff. But what really caught my eye, and David, I don't know if you've seen this, but was the Nerf Mandalorian phase pulse rifle. The Mandalorian's phase pulse rifle. It literally looks just like the one he carries, just, it's not, realistic colors. It's white and orange to make it look like a toy. But this thing comes in a huge collector's box that almost looks like a weapons crate that you're opening up, and there's this 52-inch weapon lying there, shoots 2 Nerf bullets. That's it, just 2. And it pops open just like the rifle does on the show, where it pops open, slide the shell, and close it back. Incredible thing. You could pre-order. The pre-orders on Hasbro's website sold out almost immediately, but apparently it's on pre-order right now on Amazon. This is a Nerf gun, guys, and this thing is going for $120.
That's a lot of bank, man.
So a lot of bank for something that shoots 2 Nerf bullets.
Right. I was out last night with my wife and my daughter. We had to take something back to Walmart, and we were walking back through the toys. We were buying some stuff for, at our church. Some of those, the shoebox stuff where you buy toys for kids and you help them to have a nice Christmas and stuff. And we were walking around, and I was a kid in the candy store looking at the Star Wars stuff, and I'm walking and I look and I see Monopoly with the child on it, and I'm looking at my wife like, I want it. I'm going to throw a fit if I can't have it right now. I was going to throw a fit right there in Walmart. I'm like, who wouldn't want this, And they just had the cutest picture of. I should have taken a picture of the front and posted it on Instagram or something like that. But no, you're seeing just so much stuff out. I have to be honest. I have not followed the Mando Mondays. I do go on StarWars.com for Mando Mondays and read Dan Brooks's article on the 5 highlights from the episode, and I also look at the concept art, which I absolutely love. So I hadn't seen this, but I just think this is so cool. I would just think that it's probably worth $60 or less, half or less. I mean, it's all plastic. I mean, I've had a million Nerf guns, and my son and daughter have had Nerf guns, but I've never paid $120 for a Nerf gun.
Neither have I, and that's why my wife wouldn't let me buy it. But it's incredible. Again, I was talking to one of I was talking to my boss at work today, and we were talking about it, and we were like, it's perfect if you wanted to paint it and use it for cosplay, if you were dressing up like Mando, because it's life size. It's all the pieces are there. You can just paint it up how you want it, and you're good to go on a cosplay. So that at that point, then yeah, it might be worth the 120. But my word, I have a Nerf gun in my trunk of my car that I randomly use when I come into the house. I'll just walk in and start shooting my kids.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
Exactly.
I paid $10 for that thing, and it shoots 6 darts.
Exactly. I mean, I've had so much fun with Nerf. I mean, even Eli and his buddies have had fun with like Nerf footballs and things. They're just been, I mean, just so much fun. I remember being a kid with a Nerf football. I love those things, but never this much money. Oh, good Lord. But I hear what you're saying about the cosplay. That could be a good call, but I could see, the Mando Mercs, 501st, and Rebel Legion making something just as good for less than that, it could be something cool for a kid to get under the tree. They'd be pretty thrilled.
I'd be pretty thrilled.
No, I want it too. I'm just not going to pay, 120 for it,
Well, it's funny because I for about an hour today, I've been working from home since March, but I actually had to go into the office for about an hour today, just for a get together, a meeting, and which I still don't understand why I was there. That's another story in and of itself. But we're sitting there, we're sitting around, we're talking about it, and while we were waiting for it to start, we decided that we were going to do even though we're all working from home, we're going to do our normal Secret Santa stuff, and they found an app that we were going to work it through, and you can create a wish list and everything. And I threw that in there as a joke. I did, even though it doesn't come out till next summer or something like that. It comes out late 2021, and I threw that in there, and somebody saw it and said something. Like, I thought we were doing a $25 limit. Why is this? You got 125. I'm like, yeah, well, 5 of you get together.
Right.
And y'all can get it for me.
If you really loved me, you would get it for me. Yes.
If you want your report on time, I will get confirmation of the pre-order.
So
yeah, love it. No, but yeah, it's an incredible piece. And if I had probably if I had an extra 120 lying around, I'd probably splurge. But yeah, it's nice. It's very nice, and the case is extremely detailed that it sits in. It's very, very intricate, very detailed. A lot of what look like antique artwork and stuff, and inscriptions and stuff on the case. Very nice.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
So we also got some news with the High Republic series. Of course, you remember the High Republic Publishing Initiative, which is coming out. It was supposed to come out this year, but COVID, pushed it back to next year. So the first book comes out in January. So we're a month away from when the first book comes out. But they have announced the second adult novel in this series in the High Republic Publishing thing. This is going to be called The Rising Storm, and it's going to be written by Kevin Scott, and it's going to be coming out July of 2021.
I'm looking forward to this. I saw the Kevin Scott posted the photo of the cover of the book, and I'm looking forward to the first novel, which is Light of the Jedi, January 5th, right, by Charles Soule, and then this one by Kevin Scott. I've liked his stuff. I really enjoyed listening to the audio. It came out audio only at first. The Dooku Jedi Lost. Really enjoyed that.
Really good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Kevin Scott's stuff. So when I saw this, and you and I've talked back over the entire fall about Audible and actually hardcover books or softcover. Actual physical copies are Audible, and I am going to do all of these on Audible. I just don't have any more room for all these books. So I'm looking forward to it. I've really enjoyed listening to them, and I'm going to get Charles Soules on Audible. I'm going to get this on Audible and really, enjoy them and knock them out.
Very good, very good. That's how I'm going to do it. Speaking of which, I have 2 Audible credits I need to use.
Nice, nice,
So,
yeah.
I'm finishing up. I re-listened to the original Certain Point of View, and I already have the Empire Strikes Back version queued up, ready to go afterwards. But I still got 2 credits left, and I'm like, I got to find something good to read after Empire Strikes Back. Certain Point of View.
Well, you know what? You'll be getting right there at January 5th, though. I'm sure you'll be right there for Light of the Jedi.
Light of the Jedi. That's true. That is true. Should probably just sit on it then.
Yeah, I'm right behind you. I'm getting through Star Wars from a Certain Point of View on Audible. Really enjoying it. It's helping me to get through it. I will get the Empire from a Certain Point of View. That's next, but I just need to finish up Star Wars from a Certain Point of View first. So that's what I'm working on now. That we're getting through all these Mando episodes, but I'm looking forward to these. I'm curious to see how the High Republic is going to play out and how well it's received, and I'm going to try to read the comics as well with that, and just have fun with it. Yeah.
There we go. Sounds like fun. So that's coming up. So let us know what y'all think of that, and if you got any suggestions for me for my Audible books, shoot them at me. I can use them. So,
Nice.
Perfect.
Nice.
So that wraps up our news. That's all we got in our news file today. So we'll close that out, and let's just go ahead and talk the tragedy. Of course, the tragedy, Chapter 14 of The Mandalorian, was released December 4th of 2020, directed by Robert Rodriguez, and written by Jon Favreau. Of course, big fan of Robert Rodriguez. He's an incredible director. Are you familiar with his work?
I'm not. I meant to go to IMDb and check him out. I think once you mention a couple of things, I'll probably be like, oh, yes, I've seen that.
He has done a lot. A lot of the stuff I like. He did. Some of the stuff, some of the more popular things was he did El Mariachi. Of course, there was Sin City. He did From Dusk Till Dawn. Some of my favorites, though. He's even done some kids movies like Spy Kids.
Oh, nice!
Yeah. Machete. He did Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
Yeah.
But two of my favorites was Once Upon a Time in Mexico, and I just blanked. Desperado with Antonio Banderas. Both of those had Antonio Banderas in it. And I loved those movies. Very violent, which you not surprising when you look at this episode. But he's an incredible director, and I was so happy to see him lace up the Star Wars boots per se.
That's cool. My kids, my kids. I've actually watched Shark Boy and Lava Girl. I can say that. It's interesting. Like when your kids are certain ages, the movies you watch. Some people whose kids are already raised haven't watched those, and of course watched the Spy Kids ones as well. So yeah, I had fun with those.
Definitely, they're good. So, and he did a great job on this episode.
Oh yeah.
Now, of course, this chapter begins with Mando and Grogu traveling to the panic. Yeah, they're in a panic, all right, but not yet. They're traveling to the planet Tython, where where Ahsoka had sent them to. When they get there, Mando and Grogu, or as I like to call him, Adoy, climbed up the mountain to a lookout, to almost a Stonehenge type area where the Seeing Stone was sitting. They placed him on it, and then all of a sudden we see a ship flying in, and it's not just any ship. it is probably the most beautiful ship I've seen in a while. It was Slave One. There was no doubt in my mind that was Slave One. I was so excited when I saw that ship. So Slave One flies in, and we have a mysterious visitor come marching off of it, and ends up being Boba Fett himself, along with Fennec Shand. Of course, we saw her perish, and we thought we saw her perish in episode 5 of season 1. And she tells Boba's coming, saying, "I just want my armor." And after agreeing to help each other with the Imperials that are there, the big firefight ensues. Boba kicks some major bootay in this episode. All the meanwhile, Grogu, aka Adoy, aka Baby Yoda, aka the Green Cutie, is still sitting on the Seeing Stone in a yoga pose, surrounded by a blue force field, communing, which we can only assume, with the Jedi, who have gone before. At least that's what I like to think. And of course, Mando cannot get to him. He's trying to get him to snap out of it, but the fighting ensues. And eventually Moff Gideon brings in a bunch of dark troopers. So we got confirmation they were dark troopers that we saw at the end of the one episode. The dark troopers come in. They end up taking the child, because by this point the force field has come down. He is done communing and he has passed out. And they take him and fly off. And nobody lives happily ever after. Because not only do they make off with Grogu, they blow up the Razor Crest. That's right, folks. Razor Crest go boom. Go boom, boom. Big boom, boom. And of course, at that point, Boba Fett and Fennec, they take off to Navarro to try to find help. They go to Cara Dune, who is officially a marshal of the New Republic. And Mando surprised, and this is what surprised me about the episode. He asked for information on Mayfield. If you remember Mayfield, he was one of the guns for hire in chapter 6 from season 1, where they raided the Republic prison ship. Mando left them locked up in jail there, but he wants Mayfield to help him find Gideon, and of course, ultimately Grogu. And of course, at the end, we see it ends with Moff Gideon walking into a cell aboard his aboard his cruiser, and seeing Grogu just kind of force choking and force throwing around these poor 2 stormtroopers nonchalantly everywhere, man. It was hilarious. And unfortunately, he cuffs and shoots Baby Yoda. And that's where it ends. Whew, that was a lot of talking. David, initial thoughts?
Yeah, it's quite a synopsis there. There was a lot going on. My initial thoughts is this was jaw-dropping. I kept asking, what did I just see? And it's interesting because for some reason in previous episodes, I was not as worried about the safety of Baby Yoda. I really wasn't. I had heard other people talk about that, and I thought, no, he's fine. But from the start of this episode, not them, talking back and forth to each other and Din having a fun time saying the name Grogu, but as soon as he was on that Seeing Stone and Slave One entered the scene, I'm on the edge of my seat. Then I'm even more concerned when an Imperial shuttle enters the scene. Then I'm even more worried when a second Imperial shuttle lands on the planet. Then I'm absolutely worried about Baby Yoda when Dark Troopers take off from Gideon's ship and land and then take Baby Yoda. The ending with Baby Yoda in cuffs is quite the ending. The action, the intro of Boba Fett in his armor after all these years, what is it? 43 years, I think. Is that right? 1983.
Yeah.
Is it 47? Am I messing it up here?
You're right.
But yeah, it's just so many years. It was so well done. Just, incredible episode. And I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Very good. Very good. I got to tell you, this episode caught me 110% off guard. I was not expecting such a action-packed, fun-filled ephode. This was an incredible episode from the moment we arrived on Typhon to when to the end when they go back to Navarro. It was just so much fun, and it was so interesting, and it had me scratching my head at some parts of the episode. I mean, we with the return of Boba Fett and seeing him in the armor, and Slave One flying in, and seeing Slave One in action again, man, that was incredible to see in and of itself. So I literally, I remember I was sitting on my couch. I had hit play. I was watching it. And when Slave One comes flying in, I literally sat straight up, tossed my work laptop aside because I was working, tossed my work laptop aside, sat straight up and went, "Oh, Lord, this is about to get good." And I did not move till the episode went off. Did not pick my laptop back up. I just sat there and just stared with my mouth gaping open, going, "Oh, Lord, this is awesome." So those were just, some of my initial thoughts on the episode. It was fabulous. There's so much more to get into with this episode. But before we do, we are going to take a quick break. And when we return, we will get into some of the meat of the tragedy. Welcome back. Aaron and David here, talking The Mandalorian, Chapter 14, The Tragedy. And it was a tragic ending. So, let's just go ahead and jump right into our discussion here, David. Boba Fett's back, man. There's always, I think there was even a book or comics in the EU where they brought Boba back. But, I can honestly say I never in a million years thought Boba Fett would return to canon post Return of the Jedi. And it blew me away. What were your initial thoughts when we finally got confirmation that Tim Morrison was playing Boba Fett?
Yeah, at the end of the first episode of this season, we see that clip of him with the Tusken gear, and it opened a lot of questions. One is it really Boba? Is it another clone? And I think if we go back and listen to what you and I recorded, I very much thought it was Boba. I didn't think they were going to go with some other clone, and it made the most sense. And it's Boba Fett's armor, that Mando ended up getting from Cobb Vanth. So I really love how they brought him back here. Just when he and Mando are talking to each other in that scene, and confirming he is Boba Fett. The armor is from his father, Jango Fett. I didn't want it to be anybody else, and I just did the math. It is 37 years since we saw Boba fly into the sail barge and go down into the Sarlacc pit. But no, for someone who, quite honestly, who was, part of the best part, the cartoon of the Star Wars Holiday Special. To see his introduction there, very cool. Seeing him in The Empire Strikes Back, incredibly cool. And the argument was always less was more. And now that they've filled in some of these things, it doesn't bother me. Sometimes the mystery is really cool, but just the way they did this was just outstanding. It really got me thinking back when you and I were recording that first episode of season 1, would have been chapter 9. I was wondering when he had the gaffy stick and stuff, I'm like, has he been living among the Tuscans? Because in this episode, boy, like I've heard some other people say, did he really show how to use a gaffy stick? We have never seen it used like that before. And the way Robert Rodriguez filmed it and the way that Tim Morrison acted it out was just incredible. So I, for one, I really loved, him coming back and Boba Fett being back in canon. Seeing the Slave One, I mean, we did see it briefly in Clone Wars, right? Hondo Ohnaka had it. But to see it fly into the scene and land like that, and then later on, Boba flying it, oh my gosh. I loved it, buddy. I loved it.
I definitely agree with you. I loved it as well. It was, I tell you, there was just something about seeing that ship fly in. And of course, your initial thought was, my initial thought was like, oh, this is going to be great. Then I started thinking, okay, who has Slave One? Who has it? We know Hondo had it at one point. Boba had it. Who could have possession of Slave One now? And then as it just progressed, and then we found out it's Boba Fett, and that he had saved Fennec Shan, and it was crazy to have that going on. The way it just soared through the air was just perfect. I mean, this is a character that between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi had less than 10 lines total. I think between the two movies, I'd have to go back and count. But walked away as one of the biggest fan favorite characters, even though he did literally nothing in those two movies. He got knocked down the Sarlacc pit. Wasn't that impressive in his fighting. Argued with Darth Vader for a little bit, but I mean, there was nothing really physical. He just, he was there, and his presence in the helmet was just intimidating and impressive. That made people fall in love with him, and from day one. But then to see him in this, I think we got more action from Boba Fett in this than we have in Star Wars in general as a whole. Even young Boba from Clone Wars and the movie and Attack of the Clones, he literally took the character to a new level, and Tamora Morrison's performance in this took the Boba Fett that everybody had in their head he was such a bad dude. He was the ultimate fighter. He was the ultimate bounty hunter. I mean, he was not someone to cross. And Tamora Morrison took that character, and in this 35-minute episode, confirmed everybody's belief that he is the baddest dude alive.
Well said, buddy. You nailed it. I agree with everything you said. Tim Morrison knocked it out, man. He not only knocked out a lot of stormtroopers, he knocked it out of the park in general. Oh,
he did. He kicked some major stormtrooper butt with that gaffy stick. I mean, he was just slapping them around and seeing him just beat the stew out of them. I mean, you see the gaffy sticks and that the sand people have, and you don't think anything of them. You just they're there. Then we see one used as a toothbrush in an earlier episode, and it's like, what in the world? Okay, but that the way he wielded it in this episode, you see literally the stormtrooper armor is flying apart. You just see it shattering on impact as he hits them. It is just, oh my gosh, the detail in the fight was just perfect.
Agreed.
See, I'm looking something up here real quick because you mentioned all the stormtroopers he beat up, and a Marcus Doring on Twitter, he's on Facebook, but he's in the 501st. He posted something a couple of days ago after the episode aired. Apparently, they counted how many stormtroopers they beat up in that episode, in that fight. And they counted at least 76 Imperial Remnant stormtroopers who fought bravely against the overwhelming force of 3 people.
It's funny. That's really good.
So these 3, Mando, of course, Channing Tan, and Boba Fett, whooped up on these stormtroopers. Incredible. Absolutely nuts. But, we do have to talk, because apparently Boba now has a partner in Shannick. And Fennec, sorry, not Fennec, not Shannick. It's Fennec. Fennec Shan. And he saved her life. He patched her up. And she's like part robot now. What's up with that?
Yeah, that was one of my questions. One of the I don't know if it's not should I nitpick, but it's a question I have. Was it, you see Luke get his hand replaced, and you see the mechanics in there and so on. I just wondered, did Boba do it, or did he hire someone to place all those, all the mechanical pieces in there to help keep her alive? Who knows? Maybe it'll be revealed one day, but
it was interesting to see that. I mean, she just opens up and there's all these mechanical parts, and I'm sitting there thinking, how, it's one thing for a hand because it's bone, it's literally just bone and flesh and nerves. But where around that area is, you have organs, you have your stomach, your spleen, assuming she's human. You have all these organs that are there that you need to live that would be kind of hard to replace with, mechanical pieces. So I really hope we get some more information on her and how he saved her life. But apparently, because she did, she is now loyal to the Fett. So we have the most dangerous bounty hunter in the galaxy now with the most dangerous assassin in the galaxy, teamed up working together. All right. So, of course, with Fennec, and we got Boba, let's talk about the tragedies of this episode. The episode is called Tragedy, and there is a lot of tragedy in this episode, especially if you're one of the thousands of people who just forked out $350 for the Razor Crest from Hasbro. Because the Razor Crest got blown up.
Yeah.
It ain't no Razor Crest anymore. It got blown up by Moff Gideon from orbit. He rained down fire on it, and it blew into a million pieces. And the only thing he could salvage from it was the Beskar spear, which I got a feeling is going to come in. Is going to come into the episode for a purpose. And I'll go ahead and throw it out there. It's probably going to be used in a fight against the Darksaber somehow. That's my prediction. Do with it what you will. But it survived. And, of course, the little knob from the handle that Grogu liked to play with survived.
Right. Is
So,
that made of Beskar as well?
I don't know. Or it could have just been just random debris that survived, You get random stuff like that makes it through. But it really threw me for a loop. I didn't. That was something I did not see coming. It was it to me that to blow up the Razor Crest in the show is the equivalent of blowing up the Falcon.
Right.
It's like blowing up the Enterprise in Star Trek, which they've done a couple times, but
They have.
actually have.
Yeah.
But it's huge. It's major like that, and it threw me for a loop. I still to this moment don't understand what possessed them to blow up the Razor Crest.
Yeah, me either. I started to think about it. Excuse me. Like with Hasbro, they made the sail barge, Jabba's sail barge, which did not survive, and now they've made the Razor Crest. I don't know if this is going to continue to be a a running theme for the HasLab people, but that was wow. That was shocking, and I guess in my mind, I'm just asking now. Do they bring it back in some way? Does he find another one of similar shape and design? I don't know. It opens up a lot of questions, but that was, I think, a really jaw-dropping moment and a gutsy moment for them to do that. And it really raised the stakes. Like I said, versus seeing things as being predictable and seeing it coming, I did not see that, and that. Oh, that felt like a tragedy to a certain, like the death of something. So
Yeah, it was. It's a tragedy in of that. I just don't get why. I can understand from a story point them blowing it up so they don't pursue once they get their hands on the child. But man, that was a hard pill for me to swallow. Seeing it get blown up. Now, they did a great job blowing it up.
yeah.
It was a beautiful explosion. Sabine would have been proud, but it just did not. I don't know. It was one part of the episode. I was just like, did this really need to happen? Is it something that really needed to happen? Because then the thoughts go to, well, what's Mando going to do? Well, of course we know Fennec and Boba are going to help him recover the kid. They've already said, our deal's not complete. At the end of the episode, our deal's not complete because he's got the armor back. And it's like, oh, our deal's not complete. We told you we're going to help you protect the kid. We're going to help you get the kid. So,
right.
And so he's going to have their help. So he's got to ride off the planet. But what happens when this deal's over? What's going to happen at that point? Because he ain't keeping Slave One. I don't see Boba letting him keep Slave One.
No.
So
it does. This episode does what a lot of good tragedies do. It opens up a lot of questions, and keeps us interested and looking forward. Like, what's he going to do? More questions than answers in this particular episode. We're all going to be back for, chapters 15 and 16, no question, just to see what happens.
Oh, very much, very much. Now, going to the second tragedy of this episode, we have the loss of Grogu. While being distracted in battle with the stormtroopers and the destruction of the Razor Crest, Gideon deploys 4 dark troopers which were incredible to see in action in the show. Down to the mountaintop where Grogu was. And of course, by this time, he was not surrounded by his force field. He was lying there, asleep. And they just fly down, they circle him, they march in on him, and pick him up and fly away.
Yeah.
And that literally is it. They fly up to the ship, and the ship leaves. I mean, I know, honestly, I'll be perfectly honest. I kind of knew at some point Gideon was going to get his hands back on the child. That did not surprise me. I knew it was. What surprised me was it happening now. I kind of figured this would be like a cliffhanger for the end of the season.
Oh, yeah.
Where the season ends with almost, Empire Strikes Back ended with a loss. It ended with the rebellion on the run. Luke had lost his hand. They had gotten their tails kicked. Han was at Carbonite. It was all around. It was a loss for the rebellion. So I kind of figured, season 2, Mando probably would end the same way. Mando would end up with a loss. I figured his loss would be losing the kid. Gideon gets his hand on him, and then season 3 would be him fighting to get him back. This caught me completely off guard. I did not, like I said, I did not expect it to happen in this episode. But once it did, I was like, of course, okay, I can see it. How did you feel when you saw those Dark Troopers grab him and fly off?
Well, that's kind of like I mentioned in my initial thoughts. I mean, I felt myself immediately, my nervousness increased when Slave One enters. I'm like, oh my gosh. Mando's got his hands full with Boba here. And of course, then we knew he had his hands full with Boba and Fennec Shand. And then when the Imperial shuttles both land, and then the Dark Troopers come, you start to think about it. You look back at the whole thing, and it really, this episode, it not only establishes these tragedies, but it really shows the cunning and the planning of Moff Gideon. Let me send down a shuttle with a bunch of troopers, tire these people out, send another shuttle down, continue to distract, continue to run down, Mando and whoever else is down there with them, and then deploy these Dark Troopers to finish off the deal. It's just brilliant. And almost like I started thinking about it's in waves, right? He just sends wave after wave and finishes it with the Dark Troopers, and it's just brilliantly done. And then, of course, he knows to cuff, Yoda, which was unthinkable. He cuffs sweet baby Yoda, stuns him and then puts the cuffs on him. Just, oh my gosh. So not only sets the stage for Gideon's planning and cunning, but also, how evil he is, because they're planning on taking more blood, more samples. And I didn't expect it either. Now, I do wonder if this is going to be like the end of the second act, like the tragedy, things don't look good for our heroes. And these last 2 episodes, it comes up, and like last season, some sense of success there in the 8th episode of the season. That would be the 8th episode of this season. But along with you, completely shocked with the Razor Crest being destroyed and with Baby Yoda being taken. So if this isn't, like you said, they didn't do it in the 8th episode here or chapter 16, you wonder if what kind of cliffhanger they'll leave it on, if they do, right, at the end of season 2. So I can't wait to see what they've got in these next 2 episodes after seeing this.
Oh, for sure. This is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Because Gideon's got him, and Gideon is obviously has nefarious plans for the child. He even mentions to notify the doctor. I just blanked on his name.
I know.
Yes.
Do you want me to tell you?
Yes, please.
He says, when we come out of hyperspace, send an encrypted message to Dr. Pershing.
That's right, Pershing. I should have remembered that from General Pershing. But yes, to notify General Pershing. Then he teases the child with the dark saber. And I want to get into this, but we got to take a quick break. We'll be right back, and we're going to keep talking about Gideon and Grogu. Just hang on. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. As we were saying before the break, or as I was saying before the break, Gideon's plans, of course, are nefarious. He's notifying Dr. Pershing he has a child. We know he's doing something with cloning. But in this scene that closed out the episode, we have, the child just throwing around stormtroopers like like the rag dolls. And Gideon's just standing there, and he's talking to him. Once he's done with his troopers, he just kind of collapses over as he's tired. And Gideon walks up. He's like, you've gotten stronger, but you still always get tired. So he knows the child. Obviously, he's been around the child for a while. He knows the child's limitations. He's impressed he got stronger. But then what I found very interesting, he pulls out the darksaber, lights it, ignites it in front of him, and Grogu perks up and reaches for it. It's like he knew what it was.
Yeah.
And that interested me right off the bat, because we know from the last episode from the Jedi, we know his history. He grew up in the Jedi Temple. He was trained by Jedi Masters.
Yeah.
Then somebody took him from the temple and hid him away. Then the question is, who took him? Who hid him? Who was taking care of him? And then how did the Empire come in possession of him?
Well, and I also can visualize him being in the Jedi library, the Jedi Temple library there in Jocasta Nu, looking at him, talking to him, telling him, or him just sitting there reading history and Jedi history, reading about the Darksaber, right? And was it Tar Vizsla was the one who, the first, Mandalorian, Jedi Knight and stuff like that. So I'm sure he's learned the history in his classes, right, and in his training there at the temple.
But then the question is, how? I mean, in this episode, he's 50 years old and he stumbles around like a toddler. He doesn't speak. He obviously is. He doesn't. It's not like a kid that you would be throwing in a class to read books and do history with. And if we're talking 50 years ago when he was first at the temple, you're talking he'd be even less, more along the lines of an infant at that point.
Well,
so
I wonder, it might tie in, if Filoni and Favreau go the route of PTSD, and I talked last week about one of the major things that we do see in children with PTSD is regression in behaviors. That could help explain a little bit. Of course, we don't know a lot about Yoda's species. How adept are they at 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years age? We don't know that either. But I don't know if Filoni and Favreau don't go that way. I'd be interested to see how they do explain his regressive behaviors from, and think about it. He's traumatized here. He's taken away by these dark troopers. I know we're just talking about the Darksaber, but more trauma for him, being snatched away from his caregiver here at the end of this episode, and we see it on his face. So more trauma, probably more regression, but we'll see what Favreau and Filoni, play out. If they take a psychological approach to explain his behaviors, and so on. But I know, coming back around to what you said, it'd be interesting to see, again, another question. Why so much of an interest in that Darksaber?
Yeah, very much. That's what's got me scratching my head, is why he was so interested in the Darksaber. Another thing I want to touch on I want to talk about too is the stone, the seeing stone.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's sitting on top of this mountain. It's surrounded by these columns, which gives it a very Stonehenge feel. But when they're flying in and you look at it, it kind of resembles Darth Vader's meditation chamber.
Nice. No, I hadn't thought about that. As soon as you said it, yeah.
And which I found very interesting. I love that. But then he sits on the stone. There's writing around the stone,
Right.
and which kind of to me resembled the kind of some of the writing we saw in the World Between Worlds episodes with on the individual portals. The individual portals had these circles with the writing around it and the triangle, the circle inside the triangle type thing. And to me, the writing was the same. Of course, I haven't been able to sit down and take photo from World Between Worlds in this episode and compare it to and see if they're the same. But it was very reminiscent to me of that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And of course, he doesn't go anywhere. He's just sitting there on the stone, and he's in a meditative state. He literally is sitting like he's doing yoga. He's got his little fingers together, and his eyes are closed. He's in a yoga pose, in a meditation pose, and you got that blue force field that's around him, emanating up into the sky. To me, and it could be just because I literally yesterday just finished rewatching all of Star Wars Rebels. I watched the second half of season 4 yesterday while I was working, which was hard because I still cry when Kanan dies, but it's still a gut punch. But World Between Worlds that episode is in there, and so I just watched it, and we have in that episode, at the end of that episode, when Ahsoka and Ezra are there talking, you have Palpatine show up, and he's reaching through this force, and he's got this blue energy that's coming out after him. But he never entered the World Between Worlds.
Right.
Do you think, and I'm going way off base here, there's nothing, that maybe this was almost like a mirror into the World Between Worlds, like Palpatine had in that episode? He didn't know where it was or how to get into it, but he could access it from that spot, but he couldn't do anything there.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant on your part. And, in the blue coloring of it, right? And we see that, in the World Between Worlds. I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, that ability to, because you think about Filoni's trying to add to the lore, add to the Jedi mythology, and and everything prior to this, we haven't seen this. I don't think, in live action or the animated, Rebels or even Clone Wars. And so I do like that idea that it could be that kind of thing. I guess we'll see what they say and how they explain this particular way to communicate, right? But I like the tie that you're saying. It's interesting, like when you mentioned the writing on the Seeing Stone, it's very Ralph McQuarrie inspired, no question. Just like you said in Rebels, and at the end of the episode when they were showing the concept art, they showed some of that writing on the inner sides of the stones that kind of come up to form kind of like you mentioned the meditation chamber of Vader's, but I thought it was so beautifully done. But yeah, definitely tied into Ralph McQuarrie influences. But I like what you're saying. That was Baby Yoda communicating through the World Between Worlds, much like we saw in Rebels. I didn't think about that at all during the episode. I watched it 3 times. I watched it last night again for the 3rd time, and that's a great insight, buddy. I admit I did not think about that.
And then it brings me to my next question: if that's what he was doing, who was he communicating with?
Oh, that's the biggie.
Because the world between worlds, he could have communicated with anybody.
Exactly.
Yoda,
Right.
Yaddle, Obi-Wan, Ezra,
Qui-Gon.
Qui-Gon, Luke,
Yeah, Luke.
Anakin.
Yeah. It's
Kanan.
yeah.
I mean,
No. Well, yes, yeah.
Kit
Kanan's
Fisto.
right. You're right.
I mean, he could have been talking to Mace Windu for all we knew.
Well, Ray does that at the end of the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. So I mean, it's the thoughts. I mean, it's incredible the mind will just run at this point with thoughts of what it could be. But it was incredible, absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome.
You and I talked about this when we were covering Rebels in that particular episode. The world between worlds, I think I mentioned back then, it literally opens up so many possibilities for Star Wars. And you see Dave Filoni put that in there, and he's really helped himself storytelling wise, right? And now you're looking at it, and as you bring it up tonight, I'm like, wow, from back there to now, you can see Filoni working his magic.
Very good. But yeah, it's true. It's what I'm saying. It's true. All of it.
Right.
So here we go. So we're going to close out our discussion on this, or else we could just go for another hour. Before we get into our final thoughts, though, we did get an email that I want to read real quick from our friend and listener, Daniel Contreras. And he writes, Hey, Aaron and Dave. Wow, what an amazing episode. I can't believe there are only 2 episodes left in the season, and I wonder how they're going to wrap things up in such a short period of time. And what will be left I'm getting tongue-tied here. And what will be left unresolved for season 3? One thing I'm hoping that they handle quick is the escape, release, or jailbreak of Mayfield. With just 2 episodes left, I'd rather not have one of them dedicated to getting him out of prison. Perhaps the episode can wrap up Mayfield's escape just in the opener before the title pops up. That leaves the rest of episode 15 and 16 to focus on the search for baby Grogu. Now, he wrote, whether it was autocorrect or not, he wrote Gogurt, but I'm sure he meant Grogu.
You want autocorrect right now, Gogurt, right? That's
yeah.
You know, at our local Publix, right?
Exactly. I got some Gogurt in the fridge. I also got to say, I was one of those with a pit in my stomach seeing the Razor Crest get blasted. And yes, that's because I was one of those who put down $350 for the HasLab Kickstarter. I'm sure the timing of the Kickstarter wasn't coincidence, and I had a bad feeling that once the deadline passed, the ship wouldn't be long for this world. But hey, Jabba's sail barge blew up 37 years ago, and that didn't stop fans from putting even more money down to buy those. Well, we'll see if Mando gets a Razor Crest 2.0 or a totally different type ship, or rides backseat on Slave One for a while, because Finnick's not going to give up the shotgun spot, nor should she. My guess is Din may steal an Imperial shuttle from Moff Gideon and travel in that for a while. He also says, he goes on, he wrote a novel, and I love it. Thank you, Daniel. I also want to mention how much I enjoy David's psychology segments. I hope that he can continue to include them on your show between seasons of Mandalorian. I'd love for him to bring his talents to other aspects of the Star Wars universe. There's no lacking of issues for analysis. Parent-child relationships, sibling relationships, feelings of rejection and abandonment, rebellion versus collaboration, families of choice in the Star Wars universe. 2 specific ideas I had are the ways in which Han and Leia both dealt with Ben Solo's fall to the dark side. They discuss it briefly in The Force Awakens, falling into old routines and falling away from each other. The other idea is looking into the Jedi Order's relationship into attachment. For the life of me, I can't see anything. I can't see that as anything but toxic. But even if attachment was seen as a path to the dark side for Anakin. Anyway, as Maz would say, those are interesting stories for another time. Keep up the great work and look forward to more episodes from the two of you. Daniel. Thank you, Daniel, for writing in. David, thoughts?
Oh yeah, man, everything he said was great. Going back to that initial thing he mentioned, I hope too that there's not any time spent showing them getting Mayfield out of prison or whatever, just kind of getting into it. I completely agree with Daniel on that. And he's excited for the last two chapters. I am as well this season. I will say this too. I just so appreciate him saying that he's enjoying the psychology corner. I love putting it together. The various topics he mentioned, we can absolutely cover. When I was working on my master's thesis and my doctoral dissertation, a major component of both of those research projects was attachment theory. And so, we can talk, extensively about that within the Jedi Order and compare that to what we call healthy attachment, with humans. There's secure attachment and insecure attachments. And so we can, like Daniel said, absolutely psychologically rich stuff to go over there. We could have episode upon episodes on that, with the Jedi and Anakin and Luke and all the stuff that Yoda and Qui-Gon and all the Jedi say and the Sith say. So absolutely, no, it's. I'm so glad he mentioned all that. I'm so glad he is enjoying it, and I really liked his thoughts related to what he'd like to see here these last two chapters of this season. So thank you so much, Daniel, for everything you sent there.
Definitely, I agree with everything you said. It's a great ideas, great that we can definitely include in future episodes. I don't want to see the psychology corner go anywhere either. I'm enjoying it. I'm learning, and a lot of people are enjoying it. So we look forward to including that definitely in future episodes as we go on. As for Mandalorian, I did not put down the 350 for the Razor Crest. I wish I would have, although my wife would have murdered me if I would have. But the Razor Crest, it definitely is a hard pill to swallow, like I said, with it being gone. And as for Mayfield, I really don't want to see another jailbreak episode. So I agree with you. I hope it's something they wrap up extremely quick. And that be it. So, yeah. So thanks for writing in, Daniel. And of course, everybody can write in, let us know what you think of the episode. You can email us like Daniel did, show@StarWarsReactions.com. Or of course, you can hit us up on social media, Twitter, SW Reactions Pod, Facebook, Star Wars Reactions, or Instagram right now at SW Reactions as well. Let's go into our final thoughts. To me, this was a fantastic follow-up to the Jedi episode. This was great. It was fun. It was action-packed. It introduced new ideas and new things. It brought in stuff from the original trilogy. It brought in stuff from video games, in action, and it was just a lot of fun. And to me, there was a lot of nods to Rebels with the whole meditation and stuff. Great fun. I loved it. Definitely, I gotta say, it's one of my favorite episodes of the series. At some point, I'm going to sit down once the series, hopefully the series never ends, but it will eventually. So eventually, I'm going to have to sit down and rank my top episodes for the series. And I got to say, this will probably be right up there at the top. So I loved it. David, what are your final thoughts?
Well, what is your grade? Give it.
Grade, grade. Of course, we do grade the episodes A, B, C, D, or F. For me, this was definitely an A, hands down. There was no question about it. This was an A episode.
All right. Well,
It was really good, really good. So.
I'm with you. Solid A for me. Really taking a closer look at my reactions to this episode, I can see that I view it very similarly to Chapter 12, The Siege, right? I absolutely love that. And I was asking myself why, and I think that I didn't have the expectations for a character like Ahsoka Tano. The expectations I had for Chapter 13, The Jedi, led me to not enjoy it as much. But you and I did say on subsequent viewings that we enjoyed it more. And you said something last week that it'd be interesting to see the chapters that follow the Jedi, how that would affect it. This helped me. This helped my view of the Jedi. So I am liking that more and more. I don't know, my expectations for the return of Boba Fett, apparently they just weren't as high as for Ahsoka. I guess hadn't spent as much time with Boba Fett as with Ahsoka, over all these years. I will say this, the payoff of Boba Fett was incredible and incredibly well done. As we're saying, as we look forward, I'm really interested in this team up of Mando, Boba Fett, Fennec Shand, and Mayfield. That could get dicey really fast. That is very, very interesting and has me looking forward. Not just maybe Yoda, Grogu being taken, the Razor Crest being blown up, but looking to see, how this team up works. Just a couple of questions I have is, are we clear about Jango Fett being a Mandalorian or not? I guess he fought in the wars, the Mandalorian Civil Wars per Boba Fett. And I guess, we think about what Prime Minister Almec says in the Clone Wars. And so I guess, some people just take it as, Almec was a liar the whole time as a leader or prime minister there. So nothing out of his mouth can be legitimate. So anyways, I thought that was interesting. We got more information on Jango and clearly more about Boba Fett here. And I guess it's looking to me like we're Mandalorians, so that's pretty cool. Again, overall grade of A, and I am really curious to see if one of these next two chapters is an A+. I've got a feeling.
Very good, very good. I'm still. I'll got to throw this in here because I need to say it. I'm still not sold on Jango being a Mando. He may not have been, because he may have been adopted into the Mandos, but he may not have been original Mando. Because what do they put forth in this episode? He was a foundling. Because that's exactly that he's showing him when he's showing him the chain code for the ownership of the armor.
Yeah.
Mando even says, "So your father was a foundling," and Boba acknowledges it. Yes. So, I'm not sold he was 100% Mando. Was he a Mandalorian? Yes, he was a Mandalorian, and the fact that he had the armor and he was taken in by the Mandos. But I don't think he was born Mandalorian.
Gotcha.
He was a foundling, just like Din Djarin. So.
Yeah. No, thank you for the save. I helped you at the beginning. Thank you for that save. Yes, as soon as you said that, I'm like, absolutely. You're absolutely right, Aaron. Yeah. No, I love it. I love what you said.
Yeah. So, for all we know, he's from Alderaan.
Oh, jeez.
Not anymore. He's not. Anyhow, sorry. Bad joke.
It's late at
too
night.
far. Too soon? Too soon?
Too soon.
Too soon?
Yes.
Yeah. So, so of course, great grades. We graded an A. Let us know what you thought of it. Let us know what you graded. Hit us up on social media or via email. So we're going to take one last break, and when we come back, it will be time for David's Psychology Corner. We shall return. All right, welcome back, everybody. It is time for what is becoming one of our most popular segments, David's Psychology Corner. So without further ado, allow me to turn it over to David Motters.
All right. Well, last week was a biggie, going over PTSD. Chapter 13, the Jedi, really did give us that opportunity to talk about PTSD. Interestingly, in this episode, chapter 14, it gives us the opportunity to talk about the most difficult situation any parent can face on this planet, and it's the loss of a child. We've had this overarching theme of parenting and dads, and even I've incorporated moms and all that stuff. So it was interesting when I saw this episode. I thought, well, let me share this with people. It's not an easy subject, but important, very important, particularly within parenting. So, over 28 years, I've worked with moms and dads that have lost children of all ages. I've had, kids that are 2-3 years of age die, middle age, where I am, older than that, especially with the population that I work with in the villages who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It's interesting. There's an old saying that parents have told their children for years and years. It's, quote, "You bury us, we don't bury you," unquote. And unfortunately, when parents lose a child, they become a part of the club no one wants to be a part of. And so, just to kind of go through this a little bit, it's tough because, in this work, when parents sit down with me, they've already heard a whole bunch of things that shouldn't be said to them. I don't know. It's people's anxiety makes it very difficult to know what to say. But that's a big part of the work we do is helping parents. I don't say any of those things that people shouldn't say, but unfortunately, I've heard a good number of them. Ones like, here's a classic one, Aaron. God needed your child in heaven. Well, no, that's not true. I mean, God's been around for eons without humans, and so that's not even scripturally sound, but it just annoys parents to know when to hear that. So it's interesting. I just want to give that as an example. But now Boba Fett and Fennec Shan are not paid to be psychologists, but if they were, what would they say to Din Djarin? So they don't know what to say. They want to, help him find the child, and that's a good thing. But one of the things that I do, and again, that's why I wanted to set the stage on how people, unfortunately, over the years have said many things they shouldn't say. What should we say? And the issue that I discuss is purpose, right? That's a major, major issue to discuss. And one of the questions I've asked clients for 28 years is, and this isn't lobbing a softball up, this is throwing a fastball. I ask clients, why were you born? And the majority of them look at me, and again, they're from almost every state that we have. They've retired here to Central Florida. And most of them will say to me, I don't know, right? And I expect that, and I know that's a tough one, maybe one of the toughest questions. But I've mentioned this book before, The Collapse of Parenting by Dr. Leonard Sachs. He's, again, an MD, PhD. He's MD, he's a pediatrician. A PhD, he's a clinical psychologist. And I've talked about some different aspects of the book, and I knew I wanted to come back around to this particular spot in the book. I knew I wanted to incorporate this in one of our 8 psychology corners this year, and when I saw this episode, it was the perfect time to do it. So let me share it with our listeners. The first half of the book, he talks about the problems that he has seen as a psychologist and a pediatrician over the last 30, 35, 40 years in practice. The second half of the book, he talks about solutions. And there's 3 of them. And I wanted to share these with our listeners because of this overarching theme that, Aaron and I wanted to discuss and share, which is, again, parenting, fatherhood, mothers too, right? Mamas, and children. And so this is important for moms and dads who are listening to this, or if you're thinking about having a child, to do 3 interventions as we raise kids. Number one is teach them humility. And we see a staggering lack of that in our culture because it's all about me, right? I always joke it shouldn't be an iPhone. It should be a me phone because it's all about me. And then, so humility is a wonderful thing, humbleness to see in children. A second one, Dr. Sachs talks about is enjoying time with your children. And it's a hard thing to do with the busyness of our lives and a lot of parents both working. The third thing that he talks about towards the end of the book is to teach your children the meaning of life, okay? And, or said another way, teach them that they're purposeful. Dr. Leonard Sachs gives a good example in the book, and he says that when your child or adolescent asks you, quote, why should I get good grades, unquote, he says you need to have an answer that's better than, well, to go to Harvard or Stanford, right? And just really quickly, there's a thing, and I don't have it in the notes here, but I know it because I've discussed these issues so many years. There's a thing called the middle class script where we tell our kids, well, get good grades to get into a good college. If you get into a good college, you'll get a good job. And if you have a good job, you'll have a good life. Now, what Dr. Leonard Sachs talks about in the book, and I've been talking about it for years with moms and dads and with adolescents, is the problem with the middle class script is that kids, right, elementary, middle, and really the high school kids mostly, they know that every statement, all four of those statements, is false. We like to think it's true, but just because you get good grades does not mean you get into a good college or university in this country because of the number of people in the competition level. And just because you get into a good college or university doesn't mean that you get a good job. And just because you have a good job doesn't mean you have a good life. And that's what teenagers inherently know. And I know that as well from talking to them. And so that's why I'm encouraging our parents to think about that issue. I'm not going to tell you, what to think there, but I really like how Dr. Sachs does it and says, teach them the meaning of life. And again, my respect is to the listeners on what they think that is, what they think the purpose of life is, but it's a really big protective factor for kids. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up here is because it's what I use with moms and dads who have lost children. Because when they look at me and they say, look, I don't want to wake up for the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and the first thought that comes into my head is my son or daughter is dead, I know that I have to have an answer for them that's going to help them. And the point is that they're purposeful. They were purposeful before they got married, and they were purposeful before they had kids. And I've made this argument to a lot of my clients. I tell them they're purposeful whether they get married or not, whether they have kids or not, whether they make a lot of money or not, and whether they have good health or not. And I love being able to say that to my clients. And ultimately, at the end of this episode, when Grogu is taken, we see Mando travel to Navarro and talk to Cara Dune. Now, most of my parents aren't as cool, calm, and as collected as Mando is in talking to Cara Dune, but there's a plan, and I know it's a TV show, but also Mando knows that Grogu is not dead. Particularly from 2 episodes ago, Mando knows and Cara Dune know because of that little video of Dr. Pershing that they want to take more samples, and they don't want him, I don't think at least right now, that Moff Gideon wants Grogu officially dead. So there is a slight difference, and I wanted to mention that. But I'm glad Mando is pursuing this and really going to be hell-bent on finding Grogu and help keep him safe. But the ultimate message I want to end here on with the Psychology Corner, and say it to our listeners too, is I tell parents they are purposeful and children are purposeful. Adolescents are. A lot of times that's not conveyed to them. So, I'll be curious to see what our listeners think. It's been great to get feedback, from Daniel Contreras and from other listeners. But that's as heavy of an issue. It's the most difficult issue I've ever had to do therapy on in my office over 28 years. Marital work is very difficult, high emotion. The marriage is involved, a lot of times children, family members, other family members. But working with moms and dads who have lost children is bar none the most difficult work I've ever done, but also incredibly rewarding. that the parents come in and they trust me to love them and support them and help them. And so it was really neat to see this episode of Mandalorian give me an opportunity to talk about the psychology of parenting and the loss of children. A very heavy subject, but hopefully one that people will enjoy, that they learned a little bit about, Aaron.
Very good. Very good. Definitely. I definitely am learning through your segments, and definitely look forward for them in the future. And let us, David, know what you think of his psychology segments and what they bring. Let them know if you're learning anything. Of course, David, if they wanted to do that, how would they go about doing?
Definitely.
Contacting you about that.
Definitely. 2 places. Twitter is at David_Motters. That's always been the same. And then the email is david@StarWarsReactions.com.
Excellent, excellent. And of course, you can always, if you want to talk Star Wars with me, you don't want to talk psychology part with me, because I am ignorant on the subject. But you can definitely talk Star Wars or anything with me. The best place to do that is Twitter, TA Harris 121079, or of course you can email me, Aaron@StarWarsReactions.com. David, my friend, this has been a blast as always.
Man, these episodes are incredible. Can't wait for the next 2. And we want to let people know who we've got coming on for our next
right
episode.
ahead, my friend.
Yeah, we've been working behind the scenes to get Adam Bray back, well-known Star Wars author. He's been on with us before, and we very much wanted to get him back on at least once to review one of the episodes. We do have him coming on to record next Tuesday for a Wednesday release next week. And, we just love his work and all his DK books and his work on, Rebels and, gosh, everything, Ultimate Star Wars, Stormtroopers that he did with Ryder Wyndham. I mean, just prolific. And, his insights are so fun. And so please make sure to, put the effort in to listen, because we got Adam Bray coming back for our next episode.
Yes, we will. So Adam Bray for our Chapter 15 review. Looking forward to that. Then, of course, David's Psychology Corner will return as well with an all-new segment.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to that. And, yeah, it's going to be great. So we will see everybody next week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you. Pray for y'all. We're almost through 2020, so keep your chins up. Remember, this is your place for elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
If you'd like to share your thoughts, you can email us at show@StarWarsReactions.com for our show notes and the latest news from the Star Wars universe. Visit our website at www.StarWarsReactions.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at SWReactionsPod or on Facebook at Star Wars Reactions. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on iTunes. This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or by Lucasfilm Limited. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars. All names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and the respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Star Wars Reactions unless otherwise indicated. Star Wars Reactions. Elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
Karabast, what does that even mean? Right now, it means...
Well, I say this, Aaron, keep your chins up, keep your mind up with what we said. Know you're purposeful. Don't let anybody tell you different. They're purposeful.
Sorry, my wife plugged something in and it started talking and distracting me. Sorry.
Oh, I know what that's like.
Anywho, all right, so let's try that again. All right, so try it again. Hold on.
Okay.
Now she's playing peekaboo around the corner. She knows I'm trying to close out the show too. So
who's that?
My wife.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Well, we both have had some distractions. We're doing our best.
It's all good. All good. All right. Go quiet. Let's close it out.
Karabast! Karabast!
You're not nice, Shannon.
Yeah.
I said keep your chin up, and I glance up, and she's sitting there, and she's like pushing her chin up. So she ain't right. She ain't right.
Karabast! Karabast. Karabast. Karabast.
All right, we're out.
Mm.